Well, my lad, Jubilee Day, eh? I'll tell you right now, the marching better be perfect. The drill flawless. We can't afford any mistakes today.
Yes, Sergeant. Oh, Sergeant.
Yes?
Whose Jubilee is it?
Whose Jubilee is it? Why, that's the Queen's, you fool! Maybe you need some extra drill.
The Martini Henry, entering service by the mid-1870s, was a distinct step forward in the evolution of infantry weapons. Indeed, it, and weapons like it, would force a change in tactics recognized by armies around the world. It was, however, still governed by the customary way in which the army, indeed all armies, handled its weapons. This set of evolutions, known as the manual exercise, formed the very foundation of the handling of personal weapons. Using the positions and movements referenced therein when under arms, the soldier of the mid-Victorian army conducted his daily duties and responsibilities both in barracks and the field. The manual exercise adopted for the Martini Henry was conventional when compared to that used with the weapons that came before, namely the Snider and the Enfield. Indeed, positions such as the shoulder, the present, and the slope would have been familiar to many previous generations of soldiers. The primary reference for this video is the document entitled Manual Exercises for the Rifle and Carbine, dated from 1885. But reference will also be made to a similar document dating from 1879. There were between the two some slight and very minor differences. These will be pointed out during the course of the video. Here, we'll discuss the various positions of the manual exercise. The position of order arms was the way a man stood to attention when under arms. This was both a preparatory position as well as a position that convened respect. A man would transition through the position of order arms from a relaxed state, such as stand at ease, to many other positions, such as the shoulder, the advance, or the trail. The man stood square to the front, with a general soldier-like appearance. The feet were held apart at a 45-degree angle, while the butt of the rifle was next to the small toe of the right foot. The rifle was held in a perpendicular position at the right side of the body, with the thumb behind the barrel. The disengaged left hand was held flat against the thigh. The arms were held hanging naturally from the shoulder, and these, like the head and eyes, were held square to the front and upright in a soldierly fashion. The position of stand at ease was more relaxed than the position of order arms. There were two versions of this position, one for use when bayonets were fixed, while another for use when bayonets were unfixed. The men could also be ordered to stand easy. This position was the same as stand at ease, only the men were permitted to move about and make any minor adjustments, as long as they didn't quit their ground or talk. The position of shoulder arms was a formal way in which the man would carry his rifle, and, as we can see in these photographs, was used in a static position as well as on the march. In a formal march-past setting, movement in slow time was conducted at the shoulder. This also served the role as a transitional position, with positions such as the present and the port being adopted from the shoulder. The shoulder was also used to carry the rifle in formal settings while marching in quick time. Note that in both this and marching in slow time, the right hand was held firmly to the side. As mentioned, it was a formal position. Here we see a battalion of guards marching past Queen Victoria during her Golden Jubilee in quarter column of double companies. The men are at the shoulder. The position of advance arms was used for minor administrative requirements. An example of this is the way a man would pay compliments to an officer when under arms. As noted here, a man would bring his left hand across and touch the sling of his rifle, held at the advance. The advance was also used after breaking off during the dismissal evolution, the men moving quietly off the parade square in this position. This position, however, does require a little bit of clarification. At first glance, this appears to be a line infantry sergeant holding his weapon at the advance. Indeed, he is, in all but name. In this, perhaps the most esoteric point in the manual exercise, he is actually holding his rifle at the shoulder. As stipulated in Section 8, all sergeants of all regiments and corps, both rifle, line, and otherwise, were to learn the manual exercise as taught to rifle battalions. Without meticulously demonstrating this version of the exercise, the explanation for this is thus. The manual exercise for rifle battalions stipulated that the position of shoulder arms was in fact exactly the same as the position of advance arms in line battalions. As explained previously, shoulder arms looked like this, while the advance like this. But in rifle battalions, most confusingly, this position was known as the shoulder. And therefore, to look at this picture of the Cameron Highlanders at Edinburgh Castle, we see the men standing in line at the shoulder, and at first glance, the sergeants to the right and to the rear are holding their rifles at the advance. As explained, this isn't completely correct. The sergeants are holding their rifles at the shoulder as well. The advance, or in fact the sergeant's shoulder, could be used both in slow and in quick time. Note that as per the position of shoulder arms, the disengaged arm and hand were kept checked to the side. The position of slope arms was the usual way that troops would move from point to point, whether they were deployed in the field in line or column, or moving about the battlefield in fours. The slope was the position that you would find them in. The slope was used while marching in quick time. Note the position of the disengaged right arm, checked to the side, with the hand held flat, fingers pointed to the ground. Here we see a good example of the slope being used in public duties. Note that the sergeants too have sloped arms. The slope was used in most situations, both ceremonial and field evolutions. Therefore, the position could be used while marching in double time. The position of the present was the way a man would salute in certain formal situations. Here we see members of the Guards presenting arms to Queen Victoria during her Golden Jubilee. Armed parties, colours, or officers of field rank and above were other situations where the present was used. The position of port arms was used in certain circumstances. Here we see men of the Gordon Highlanders executing the relief of sentry evolution. Both sentries, old and new, are carrying their rifles at the port. The complete evolution of which looked like this. With the commander of the relief at the advance, the men at the slope, 10 paces from the post, they were ordered to the shoulder.
Relief.
The relief halted a convenient distance away and was then ordered to port arms. The relief then marched forward and halted in front of the old sentry.
Sentry, pass.
The sentries passed, with the old sentry taking a step to the left and the new sentry taking a step forward, occupying the same spot. The old sentry then fell in to the rear of the relief party. Then the order to shoulder arms was given, and to front.
Relief, quick. Mark.
Once 10 paces away, the relief was ordered to slope arms. Please excuse the error made in the previous demonstration. The position of port arms was executed incorrectly and should look like this. The port was also the position adopted when the inspection of weapons was ordered. The word of command in this case was for inspection, port arms. The position of charged bayonets was used when the bayonet had to be presented to the front for either offensive action or for the protection of the soldier. This position was also used during the actual delivery of the charge, or assault, onto the enemy position. Beginning this evolution in line at the slope, on the word of command to prepare to charge, the front rank only brought the weapons to the trail. On the word of command charge, the rifle was brought to the position of charged bayonets, and the line broke into double time. The position of the trail had uses in field movements as well as ceremonial. It was used while marching in quick time. Never used with fixed bayonets, The delivery of the charge was a notable exception. During this, as well as marching past at the double, rifles were carried at the trail. The secure was used to protect the action during inclement weather. Its use was primarily by sentries or other static position soldiers. Note in this example how the action of the rifle is protected at the secure under the cape. So this concludes the first part of the video. In the next part, the individual positions and the movements required to transition between them will be outlined and detailed. If the minutiae of the manual exercise isn't quite your thing, then feel free to skip forward to the 30-minute and 13-second mark, where a demonstration of the review exercise will be given. Like all manual exercises or drill in the Army, it was first taught to the recruit by numbers.
Manual exercise by numbers.
We'll first deal with movements that begin from the position of order arms. Stand at ease without bayonets.
Stand at ease.
On the word of command, the right arm extended, pushing the rifle slightly to the front. Simultaneous to this, the right foot was drawn back so that its instep was in line with the heel of the left foot. The weight of the body was shifted to the rear. Attention from stand at ease without bayonets.
Attention!
On the word of command, the right arm was brought back, adopting the position of order arms. Simultaneously, the right foot was brought back up to the position of attention. Stand at ease with bayonets fixed.
Stand at ease.
On the word of command, the hands were raised to the front, with the left palm facing up and the right down. Immediately subsequent, the hands were clapped in front of the body and drawn down to the front, with the left hand held in the right. The rifle was supported in the crook of the right elbow. Simultaneous to this, the right foot was drawn back to the position of stand at ease. Attention, from the position of stand at ease with bayonets.
Attention!
On the word of command, the hands were brought back to the position of attention, the right hand gripping the rifle at the position of order arms. Simultaneous to this, the right foot was brought back to the position of attention. Fix bayonets from the order. Mention should be made about the instructions for fixing bayonets from 1885. The manual states that after the bayonet has been fixed to the rifle, the position of order arms is adopted, taking the time from the right.
Fix bayonets.
On the word of command, the right hand pushed the rifle slightly to the front. Simultaneous to this, the left hand moved to the left hip, gripping the hilt of the bayonet with the thumb and forefinger. Then immediately the bayonet was withdrawn from the scabbard, rotating it about so that the tip faced up. The left elbow was kept as close to the side of the body as possible during this part of the evolution. The socket of the bayonet was then placed over the muzzle, with the slot corresponding to the foresight. Once fully seated, the locking ring was rotated, locking the bayonet onto the muzzle. Here's a close-up of how that evolution worked. Note that the left thumb pushes away on the locking ring, forcing it to the right. The man stayed in this position until such times as the signal from the right was given, and he returned to the order. Now the manual doesn't stipulate what that signal was, and I had interpreted it to mean a signal given by the right marker. But because the manual stipulates that the head and eyes remain straight to the front, the possibility that a ripple effect was used, starting on the right flank of the company and working its way down to the left. This evolution differs from that prescribed in the 1879 manual. In it, there was no pause between the bayonet being fixed and the man readopting the position of order arms.
Fix bayonets.
The man immediately resuming the position of order arms. Unfix bayonets from the order.
Unfix bayonet.
In the first part, the right hand moved the rifle so that the butt was placed between the feet and the knees were bent, gripping the rifle. Simultaneous to this, the left hand came up and grabbed the weapon at the upper band. Immediately subsequent, the right hand was moved to a position to the right of the muzzle, and using the knuckle of the forefinger, loosened the bayonet locking ring. Then, using the web of the hand, rotated and lifted the bayonet off the muzzle. The tip of the bayonet was then rotated to the left, and with the left hand gripping the scabbard, angling it for an easy entry, the bayonet was fully seated in the scabbard. As soon as that was complete, the right hand re-gripped the weapon at the barrel band, and the head and eyes were positioned straight to the front. Then, taking the time from the right, the man readopted the position of order arms. As was hypothesized in the fixing of bayonets evolution, a ripple effect may have been used, starting from the right of the company and working its way to the left. Shoulder arms from the order. An interesting point about this movement as it's presented in the manual is the fact that it is not broken into any parts, so as to interpret this as written, it would look like this.
Shoulder! Arms!
On the word of command, the rifle was raised with a flick of the right wrist. It was caught behind the backside, with the elbow held close into the body. The rifle was then immediately transitioned to the left side, where the left hand gripped the butt plate, thumb along the heel of the butt. Immediately subsequent, the right hand was brought back to the position of attention at the right-hand side. For purposes of clarity, and indeed further discussion, I've included the older version of this movement from the 1870 manual. This, of course, is for the Snider rifle, and indeed is the same drill as that performed with the Enfield. Here, it is very clearly broken into two distinct movements, resulting in the application of a pause between them when performing this movement in quick time. Here's a version with the Martini Henry applying this same principle.
Shoulder! Arms! 2!
Order arms from the shoulder.
Order! Arms! 2!
In the first part, the right hand came across and gripped the weapon above the lower barrel band. In the second part, the right hand lowered the weapon directly to the position of order arms, the butt being placed quietly on the ground. Advance arms from the order.
Advance! Arms! 2!
In the first part, the rifle was raised quickly with a flick of the right wrist. The left hand came across and steadied the weapon at elbow level. The right hand gripped the trigger guard in a particular fashion. The trigger guard was gripped by the thumb and the forefinger only, the remaining fingers being placed flat against the breech of the rifle. In the second part, the left hand was cut away to the position of attention. Order arms from the advance.
Order! Arms! 2! 3!
In the first part, the left hand came across and gripped the weapon just below the upper sling swivel. In the second part, the left hand lowered the weapon through the right, which then gripped the weapon just above the lower barrel band. In the third part, the left hand was cut away to the position of attention, and the right hand lowered the butt of the rifle quietly to the ground. Trail arms from the order.
Trail! Arms!
On the word of command, with a flick of the right wrist, the rifle was drawn up to a horizontal position, the right hand gripping it at the point of balance. Order arms from the trail.
Order! Arms!
On the word of command, the right hand choked up on the rifle, gripping it above the lower barrel band. Simultaneous to this, it was allowed to be lowered to the position of order arms. Slope arms from the order.
Slow! Arms! 2!
In the first part, the rifle was brought to the position of shoulder arms as previously discussed. In the second part, the left hand was raised so that it formed a 90-degree angle at the elbow. In doing so, the rifle was rocked back on the shoulder at an angle of 45 degrees. Order arms from the slope.
Order! Arms! 2!
In the first part, the left hand was lowered so as to bring the rifle back to a vertical position similar to that of shoulder arms. Simultaneous to this, the right hand was brought across and gripped the weapon above the lower barrel band. In the second part, the right hand lowered the weapon to the position of order arms, placing the butt gently on the ground. We'll now demonstrate movement starting from the position of shoulder arms. Present arms from the shoulder.
Present arms. 2, 3.
In the first part, the rifle was given a quarter turn to the right, so that the barrel faced in that same direction. Simultaneously, the right hand came across and gripped the weapon at the wrist. In the second part, the right hand raised the weapon up so that it was in line with the center of the body, the orientation of it not changing. Simultaneous to this, the left hand quit the butt plate and moved to a position striking the sling just in front of the trigger guard. The weapon was raised high enough so that the tip of the fingers of the left hand were in line with the mouth. In the third part, the rifle was lowered in front of the body, twisting it so that the sling faced straight to the front and the hands changed their grip on the rifle. Shown here, the left hand assumed an all-around grip of the forestock with the thumb uppermost, whilst the right hand transitioned to an open grip with the finger straight at the wrist. Simultaneous to this, the right foot was drawn back so that its instep was in line with the heel of the left foot. Shoulder arms from the present.
Shoulder arms. 2.
In the first part, the right hand moved the rifle back to the position of shoulder arms, twisting it so that the barrel faced the front. Simultaneous to this, the right foot was brought back to the position of attention. The left hand resumed its normal grip on the butt plate. In the second part, the right hand was cut away to the position of attention. Port arms from the shoulder.
Port arms. 2.
In the first part, the right hand came across and gripped the rifle at the wrist. In the second part, the right hand brought the weapon down at a 45-degree angle to the front. The left hand gripped the weapon on the forestock in front of the trigger guard. Shoulder arms from the port.
Shoulder arms. 2.
In the first part, the right hand moved the rifle back to the position of shoulder arms, and the left hand assumed its grip on the butt plate. In the second part, the right hand was cut away to the position of attention. Advance arms from the shoulder.
Advance arms. 2, 3.
In the first part, the right hand came across and gripped the weapon at the wrist. Simultaneously, the left hand gave the rifle a 1/4 twist to the right. In the second part, the rifle was transitioned to the right side, the left hand holding the rifle at the barrel band and the right hand assuming its grip in the position of advance arms. In the third part, the left hand was cut away to the position of attention. Shoulder arms from the advance.
Shoulder arms. 2, 3.
In the first part, the right hand raised the weapon up approximately 1 inch and re-gripped the rifle with a flat grip at the wrist. Simultaneously, the left hand came across and gripped the weapon at the barrel band. In the second part, the right hand transitioned the weapon to the position of shoulder arms and the left hand gripped the butt plate. In the third part, the right hand was cut away to the position of attention. Slope arms from the shoulder.
Slow arms.
On the word of command, the left hand was raised, creating a 90-degree bend in the left elbow. This brought the weapon back to a 45-degree angle on the left shoulder. Shoulder arms from the slope.
Shoulder arms.
On the word of command, the left arm was straightened, bringing the rifle back to the position of shoulder arms. Trail arms from the shoulder.
Trail arms. 2.
In the first part, the right hand came across and gripped the weapon just behind the backside. In the second part, the right arm was straightened, allowing the rifle to come down to the right side, parallel to the ground. Shoulder arms from the trail.
Shoulder arms. 2.
In the first part, the right arm was bent, bringing the weapon to the left side at the position of shoulder arms. In the second part, the right hand was cut away to the position of attention. Secure arms from the shoulder.
Secure arms.
2, 3.
In the first part, the left hand rotated the rifle as per the first part of the present arms. Simultaneously, the right hand came across and gripped the weapon at the wrist. In the second part, the right hand continued to twist the rifle, bringing the sling to the front. The left hand quit the butt plate and gripped the weapon in front of the trigger guard. In the third part, the left hand lowered the weapon in an arc to the front, bringing the butt under the left armpit. Shoulder arms from the secure.
Shoulder arms.
2, 3.
In the first part, the left hand was raised, bringing the weapon to a vertical position with the sling to the front. Simultaneously, the right hand came across and gripped the weapon at the wrist. In the second part, the right hand rotated the rifle so that the sling pointed to the left, and the left hand quit the forestock and gripped the butt plate. In the third part, the right hand was cut away to the position of attention, and the left hand twisted back and brought the weapon back to the position of shoulder arms. We'll now demonstrate movements beginning from the position of advance arms. Trail arms from the advance.
Trail arms.
2.
In the first part, the left hand came across and gripped the weapon just above the lower barrel band. In the second part, the right hand quit its grip on the trigger guard, assumed a grip at the point of balance, then immediately the rifle was dropped to the position of trail arms and the left hand cut away. Advance arms from the trail.
Advance arms.
2.
In the first part, the right arm was bent, bringing the rifle to a vertical position at the right-hand side. Simultaneous to this, the left hand came across and gripped the weapon at the lower barrel band. The instant the left hand gained control of the weapon, the right hand quit its grip at the point of balance and re-gripped in the position of advance arms. In the second part, the left hand was cut away to the position of attention. Slope arms from the advance. Although this movement, as it's named, is not included in the manual, perhaps more appropriately, this should be termed the slope arms from the shoulder as it pertains to sergeants. As indicated in the manual, and as well by this photographic evidence, sergeants carried their rifles at the slope when their men did.
Slow arms.
2, 3.
In the first part, the right hand raised the weapon up approximately 1 inch. Simultaneously, it was caught with the left hand at the barrel band, thus allowing the right hand to grip the wrist of the stock in a straight, open-fingered fashion. In the second part, the right hand moved the weapon to the left shoulder, placing it at a 45-degree angle, sling down. Simultaneous to this, the left hand moved and gripped the butt plate. In the third part, the right hand was cut away to the position of attention. Advance arms from the slope.
Advance arms.
2, 3.
In the first part, the right hand came across the body and gripped the rifle at the wrist. In the second part, the right hand moved and brought the rifle to a position perpendicular at the right side, re-gripping immediately to the position of advance arms, and the left hand came and steadied the weapon at elbow level. In the third part, the left hand was cut away to the position of attention. We'll now demonstrate movements beginning from the position of port arms. Charge bayonets from the port.
As for front rank, charge bayonets.
On the word of command, the body was turned, pivoting on the heels to the right, so that the left foot pointed to the front and the right foot pointed to the right. Simultaneously, the rifle was brought from the position of port arms down so that the weapon was held at the right hip, arms extended, and the bayonet elevated slightly toward a man's chest. Shoulder arms from the charge.
Shoulder arms.
2.
In the first part, the right hand moved and rotated the rifle back to the left side in the position of shoulder arms. Simultaneous to this, the body was twisted back to the front, pivoting on the heels. In the second part, the right hand was cut away to the position of attention. As a way of judging efficiency and ability in the manual exercise, troops were put through what was termed the review exercise. This could be done at inspections or reviews. It was done using the appropriate words of command, and in quick time. That is to say, the men demonstrated the complete movements, observing a pause between parts.
Review exercise. Present. Arms. Shoulder. Arms. Port. Arms. Charge. Bayonets. Shoulder. Arms. Advance. Arms. Order. Arms. Advance. Arms. Shoulder. Arms. Slow. Arms. Shoulder. Arms. Order. Arms. Unfix. Bayonet.
I'd like to take this time and give a special thanks to two friends of the channel. Firstly, Grant, a Canadian and British Empire military history enthusiast, who, perhaps most fittingly, likes to shoot his rifles as much as I do. He took pity on me and my, shall we say, somewhat less than historical water bottle. To replace it, he presented me with this Italian pattern water bottle, as used in the British Army from the 1870s through the 1890s. It arrived just in time to be included in some of the shots for this video. This water bottle wasn't commonly found in Canada, but for videos like this, in this particular time frame, it fits just perfectly. The second thank you goes to Stan. Some of you might know him as the sole proprietor of the regimental quartermaster. He deals in all manner of British Empire Victorian military equipment. Seeing that I was missing them, he presented me with a fine set of reproduction collar badges for the Seaforth Highlanders. Thank you both for your more than generous contributions to the channel. And of course, the fine people at the Victoria Esquimalt Military Reenactors Association, who kindly let me the use of some of the facilities at Fort Rod Hill last summer for filming.